Hello and welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Gibbon podcast, episode 50. Who'd have thought it? 50 episodes. If you're still listening, thank you very much. Hopefully you've enjoyed it all the way through to here. I did say in a previous episode that when I reached 50 episodes, we would bring season 1 to a close. So we are bringing season 1 to a close with an absolutely fantastic episode. I hope you're all going to enjoy it. But before we get there, let's just have a bit of a recap. We are now in the middle of November. It's snowing. It's like white outside. It's been snowing probably for the last 2 days over here. I think there's a yellow weather warning in force for most of the country. So if you are listening to this at another time, you may remember back to when there was a yellow weather warning that covered most of the country for snow and ice. I think we've got snow for at least another day, solid, but it could change. It may turn into rain. It normally does. What's that mean? It means that obviously winter is finally here. I think a week ago it was still 14 degrees and now all of a sudden we're down in those ones, twos, minus numbers as well. But that's great because it just means that the snow brings something different. And the cold weather changes the way we hunt. We can still go out. There's plenty going on. The roe doe seasons are in full swing. The hinds are still being taken off the hill. But it also means we've got to look forward to that Christmas time when you can all come together, friends and family, have a great laugh, good food, eat plenty of venison, eat plenty of game. What else does it mean? It means you can think about all the things you want, all those new toys, new gadgets, stuff like that. Will it be a new thermal this year, a new scope, set of binos? Get thinking, but maybe don't buy them at Christmas. Sometimes, I know we say it doesn't really happen anymore, but there are still some shows out there where bargains are available. For example, if you're new to stalking or even a seasoned hand, going to the stalking show this year could be the place to actually pick something up that you really, really want. It's going to be bigger and better. I know that for a fact. I was actually talking to David, the organizer, today on the phone, and hopefully we'll have him back on here around about sort of end of January, beginning of February time, and he can give us a bit of a sneak preview as to what's coming in the show this year. But I'll be down there again, so you'll be able to see me, catch up, have a chat. Alex, I know from the Hunter-Gatherer, is going to be there as well with another stand, maybe doing some videos and stuff like that. So that's what we've got to look forward to. There are some other shows as well coming up, like you've got shooting shows and things, as well as the game fairs. But I think the highlight for most people that enjoy their deer stalking is definitely the stalking show. I think something else I just need to touch on, because I think it'll be one of those moments marked down in history, is obviously today there was the farmers marched into London and protested about everything that this new government has brought out. So if you are listening to this at another point, obviously it's something to go back and have a look at. But if you are listening to this tomorrow, then it may be ringing true and ringing a bell that, the countryside is changing. A new government changes the way things are looked at. So we need to be wary and mindful about how things are going forward. Let's get to the main body of this podcast, which is just around the corner. I talked to Jack, who is a cattle farmer on a very, very large Australian cattle station, who has many problems with different animals. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon podcast. Today I am joined by Jack Carmody. You may have seen him as Jack Out the Back on YouTube. Anyway, we're going to have a chat with him about some problem camels and kangaroos, I think, and probably a lot of other things that you guys that listen in the UK and around the world may not know about. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Pete.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, I know we've got an 8-hour time difference, so trying to organise this has been a bit of a tricky one, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's always entertaining, but we make it work. And the biggest thing we have to say is it's pretty incredible to be able to do it from here, like the absolute middle of Western Australia. And it's
I was going to say
every time.
yeah, I was going to say, because you are literally in the middle of, or I think I'm in the back end of nowhere, being in the northeast of Scotland, but you really are in the middle of almost nowhere, aren't you?
Yeah, no, or the middle of everywhere. Um,
Oh, I suppose, yeah, that's true.
but no, it is quite a distance. Like our nearest neighbours are about 120 kilometres away.
Okay.
So yeah,
I,
there's
I
a little bit of distance.
yeah, because I think I remember hearing that because you're out on a cattle station, and was it something, if I'm right in this, it's about 1 million acres.
Yeah. So it's I think it's like greater than the Greater London area, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
area that we cover. Yeah.
We kind of we tried to work out how much agricultural land there was in Aberdeenshire, and I think we come in at 1.3 million acres. So you're the equivalent size of a Scottish area, a shire at the end of the day. It's pretty impressive, really.
Yeah, that is. I guess that puts it in perspective for everyone.
Yeah, it's so vast. So how do you guys obviously how are you well the communications, you've obviously got a good internet connection. How's that achieved where you are?
Yeah, so we used to be on what was called our national broadband network. So that was a satellite system, but
Right.
it had a latency of like 700 milliseconds, which is pretty painful. Um,
Yeah.
and now we're running on Starlink, the low Earth orbit network. So that's very snappy.
I
And
was going to say because I've watched a few videos of what you've put up, and you've got like links all over the place now out on the station, so you can see what's going on, and like you've got signal everywhere, haven't you?
yeah, we've got a base station. So effectively, the Homestead area has a Starlink, so an uplink point, and then we spread it out across the station. But it's like only localized areas. It goes on a point-to-point network. So sort of launches from the Homestead up, goes to a couple of different hills, and yeah, bounces around the place. It does. Yeah, I think the longest, if you add up all the kilometers it does around 100 kilometers.
You're probably better off connected than some of the guys in the UK, to be honest.
It's something people quite often remark on that we've got higher and better quality internet out here than people do have in like inner cities in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It really is. But hey, there you go. So the main reason for getting you on the show, obviously, was to I saw some of your videos, and anybody that hasn't, go and look at obviously Jack's videos. They're brilliant. They really do explain the problems you've got. But let's get into it, because obviously one of your big issues you've got out there is this thing of camels, and I think kangaroos as well are sort of another hot topic, aren't they?
Yeah, so the camels is, to the whole concept of having such a large animal as a pest is kind of perplexing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
100%.
yeah, so how can you have something that big that's a prick of a thing? And you usually think of pest, and you're thinking, flies are a pest, rabbits are a pest, that sort of thing. But then you've got a camel, an animal that can weigh a good 750 kilos,
Yeah.
um, as a minor inconvenience.
Well, because obviously Australia is known for the issues you've got with rabbits out there. Then they introduced the foxes to control the rabbits, and everything just kind of became a bit crazy. But yeah, as you say, so how did the camels first arrive in? Because they're obviously not native, and they're classified as a pest.
Yeah, so it was, I think it was like in the late 1800s
Right.
when, that the camels were brought in by the British,
Okay.
and they came off the Canary Islands, and they used originally a lot of Indian cameleers, and then we ended up with a lot of Afghani ones. Um, and that's why over here they get called Afghans a bit. Um,
Okay. You're right.
but the first camel in Australia, because the first shipment of camels coming into Australia had a small problem that out of the 90 camels that were sent, only one survived. That
Okay. Right. Yeah.
that one camel, whose name was Harry. ended up killing his owner by shooting him.
Right. Okay. That's a good story. Yeah.
Yeah. So the explorer or pioneer pastoralist. So I can't remember his name, but he was out in South Australia, and he was near, I think it's Lake Dutton, and he was going to shoot a bird to feed, and he was reloading the rifle. It appears that he put the rifle down, and the camel got up, but set the rifle off, shot him through the face, and took off a couple of his fingers. And his last words, because before he died, were, "Can someone shoot the bloody camel?" But the camels were, brought in. I think it was only a few thousand were ever brought into Australia, and they were used for a lot of exploring in the arid inland because horses weren't quite up to the standard, but they'd often use them in teams where the men would be on the horses and the camels would be packing everything out.
Okay.
And that's where that traditional caravan of camels was quite used here. And
you could understand that because obviously that was their main roles. Obviously, when you look at them for Africa and places like that, they've got that ability, haven't they, to survive in those arid conditions probably a lot better than a horse.
and it's the very wide grazing range. So horses are very specific about what they want to eat.
Yep.
And a camel can pretty much digest, but they've got a very advanced digestive system. Out here, we say horses and cattle can take around 40% of what's out in this environment. The camel can take twice as much. They're up and around 86, 87%
Good
of
grief.
the local flora that they can actually survive off. So that's a huge advantage, when you're out exploring a country that you don't know where the next feed's coming from.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they did very, very well in that regard. And no, the camels were instrumental to exploring and also developing the inland. And yeah, it's a little bit of an unfortunate tale as to why the camel stopped being useful. And it comes into around the 1920s when the White Australia policy was implemented.
Okay.
About the immigration laws changed. And so we weren't actually getting any more Afghans or Indian cameleers into the country. So then there was no skilled labourers or anyone who could actually handle and manage the camels, steer the camels, and they were told to shoot their camels, and they didn't want to, and so they just let them go, and here we are,
somebody else's
later.
problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just forget them, and they'll disappear. They'll be fine. They won't cause anybody any issues.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Absolutely. So 100 years down the line, and now I'm assuming that you have a big problem.
Look, the scale of the problem isn't actually known.
Okay.
So the population is estimated to double every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
The last time that they did an estimate of the camel numbers was 2013, and they said that there was 1 million.
Okay. Right.
So,
yeah, that kind of, and then 2013 and double every 3 years. Good grief, that's a fair number of beast wandering about the place, and I'm assuming that's only that count, because there was something funny about the counts you can do out there as well, isn't there? That count was kind of probably not done off photographs; it's done off literally live data, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very strange way of assessing numbers. So it's outside the window of a Cessna, and you've got a little sticky taped off patch
Okay.
on the window that you're allowed to count the animals in, and that's it.
Yeah, because I found that quite interesting because when you described it before, I was listening and it was like, yeah, you're not actually allowed to take like a still photo of it and count the number of animals back up like back at base. You have to do it there and then in that window, in that little frame on the window, which seems to be absolutely crazy. Why do you know why there's a reason you can't take there's no photos allowed?
They may have changed their procedures, but the reason was something to do with not being able to identify if it's the same animal counted twice or something. It was
Oh, okay.
ridiculous.
Right.
Um, yeah,
It's just
it did.
crazy, isn't it? You'd think with modern technology and all the rest of it, take a photo, high resolution photo, you just count up what you've got and go, well, hang on a minute, in that square, we've got X number of camels per square kilometer or whatever it is, and boom, you're done.
Yeah, it'd be too simple.
It's still it's some of this information and things like that. I think the reason for our chat really is because it rings so many um, similarities to the issues that we're suffering in Scotland at the moment about red deer and how many there are and the population density, etc., etc., etc. And nobody really knows. And it's a similar sort of situation by the sounds of it to what you've got, apart from yours are on a much larger scale and probably a fairly more destructive at the time at the same reason.
Yeah, and little to no commercial value. So,
That was so yeah, you let's talk about that. So once you've harvested these camels, what do you do with them?
so the only real, sorry, the only real avenue at the moment that we've been able to make somewhat work is pet meat.
Really?
And
Okay.
yes, so we've got a pet meat producer, Ethan. He's from Albany, so that's 1,300 kilometers away. And
Wow.
he,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do it as an annual thing. We try and time the year right, and so we've got a video coming out tomorrow, which is part two of this year's harvest. Um, because of the weather, the flies, like all of the other environmental factors. And yeah, it's but we're happy with that because we actually are using, I think it was somewhere around 10% of what we kill on the property are being used for
Right.
pet meat.
And It,
So
I'm assuming camels actually you can eat it. It's fine human consumption.
yeah, it tastes just like beef. Like you can just about no way you can tell the difference.
Okay. So why then can't this be put into the food chain? Why can't it be everybody's moaning about how we don't have enough we're all too many cattle this or that. Why can't a wild food product be used? What's the reasoning, do you know?
People don't want it to work.
It just seems to be that I think you did a short video up about something about hunters, fishers, and all the rest of it, how we're in a minority. um and it does seem as though we're the custodians of the countryside at the end of the day, yet nobody seems to want us to be able to succeed and do this because for some reason it's outside the bigger picture. Would you agree on that?
Look, people want to have a disconnect from their food, and they don't want the blood on their hands to say. It's
Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah.
figurative and literal. They don't want to believe that something else has died because society has been pushed to the point where people are, believing that animals, everything are sentient and have a personality. I don't disagree that animals have a personality. I love my cattle, and some of them are, great fun. But
Yeah,
there's a level that people don't want to believe that that's where the food, the protein that you need to function correctly as a human being come from. Um,
absolutely,
and
100%. Yeah,
we're
I
assigning
I'm
human, characteristics to things that
Yeah.
really are not.
We wouldn't be. I think I've spoken about this many times on many podcasts. We wouldn't be here today if our ancestors, the man who lived in a cave and had a big stick and then his stick got pointy, went out and did what he did. Because at the end of the day, that's how we've developed. We're a weak species in theory, but the only bit that works well for us is we've got a brain and we can work out, hang on a minute, if we use tools and move forward, we stay alive. And I think that's the thing. So are we kind of, the worst thing is, are we going around in a big full circle and this pendulum's going to swing back again and suddenly we'll realize we're the weak species and we need to do something to help us get along?
Well, I think it's there's one word that we can use to sort of come around to and think about in terms of how humans have developed into being where we are and being so successful at it. And it's trust. Like our society is completely and utterly built on trust. That
Yep.
we left the cave to go hunt for food, and when we had young, we still had to go out and hunt for food, and we trusted others in our tribe to look after that child and not to kill it.
Yes.
And that's the fundamental part of development in our society, because then we had it where people were out hunting and the people that were trusted to look after the young, and then the other people that decided to start experimenting and trying different things and failing and succeeding and creating different tools and different ways of doing things, because there was the trust that the other people would hunt and they would collect the food. The food would be there, which meant that they would have protein and they'd be able to survive and their young would survive. But that other person has been able to go out and invent something different. And
Yep.
it's we've kind of lost that idea of being able to trust our society and others in our society. And that's sort of a disappointing thing to think about. And it all comes right back to the cave, sitting around the campfire, and the three people. One goes out, sows a crop. One goes out, gets the fish, and one goes hunting. And as you know, going out hunting isn't always successful. So
Exactly. No, 100%. If everybody went out to hunt and came back every time with something, it would be. It doesn't happen, does it? It's all about the skill and the challenge and being able to use that knowledge and what you're doing to bring that food back to the table.
And through that, we've gained a better understanding of the environment. And that again, the hunter comes back and he tells the others about what he's seen, and he's educating them and sharing
100%.
his experiences, and they would share that because they trust each other. So yeah, it's an interesting way to look at society and how we've lost that track of where our food comes from, but also that there's people have been engineered and pushed to distrust where their food comes from.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with you that way. I think their trust now that lies within the big supermarket chains, because they trust that when it turns up on a little polystyrene tray wrapped in cling film, it's safe to eat. Whereas if you rocked up with a plastic bag or a vac-pack bag of, I don't know, let's say deer, camel, or something you brought straight from the farm, people would be like, how do I know that's safe to eat? It doesn't have the rubber stamp of the big corporate brand on it.
Well, it's not clean. You look at meat now in a shopping centre. There's no blood.
No,
But
100%.
and that's changed in now. It's dyes and stuff put onto your food to make it look bright red meat.
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing, and yeah, absolutely. There's a little part where evolutionary, like you could say, oh yeah, that's whether or not you trust the food because of the smell, and the meat. And now, if you go to your store and you get meat, when you open it up, what do you smell? That's one of our key senses is our smell,
Yeah.
and that's what you should trust and rely. But you're eating and you're consuming meat that is so far removed from what it should be that it doesn't smell like anything.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, flavors and all the rest of it are all part of the product. Yeah, I know. I completely. I think everybody listening, we're probably preaching to the converted, but it's one of those things that the plan, hopefully, that there will be somebody that listens to this and gains some knowledge from it. That's the key. But I just can't believe that you harvest however many camels a year, and realistically, you can't do anything with them. We have big issues over here with like pheasant shoots and people moaning that they shoot too many birds and what do we do with them? They go for dog food. But when you're talking of an animal that's probably, as you said, what, 170 kilos, and that's pure going for dog food,
Yeah,
pet food.
yep. And
just...
so we measured it in consumable or yielding meat per annum, and we waste, literally rot away or light on fire, 140 tons of meat.
Wow. Yeah, it's just and the whole thing you see in the press and the media all the time is there are people starving, there is the need for food, we need to produce more. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, you probably could solve quite a lot of Australia's hunger and issues out there with the amount of meat that's being wasted per year.
Yes, yeah, easily. It's just having the will to do it, the finances to do it, and the red tape to be able to get through it.
It's
So
always red tape, and there's no money. Probably there's no income that somebody can see from it. Therefore, well, it just seems like hard work. Well, we can do it where we can get some money for someone else that's easier, and somebody will give us a grant for it.
oh yeah, that's let's not get started on grants.
That's another podcast. We'll come back to that. So there was, I think, some other interesting facts is let's actually we'll dive into the actual tools you use, because obviously you have to go out and chase these camels around. I'm assuming it's not sort of the thing you can do where, like I do, is walk out the front door, walk a few hundred meters, and I'm there on the land. You've probably got a fair old trek to get into these. So are you doing a lot of that via vehicles, helicopters? How's a typical day if you were going out to get to harvest some camels?
So if we're going to harvest, not to cull, we run the aircraft for spotting them.
Okay.
Got a fixed wing aircraft, we'll throw that up and that will get out scanning a pattern in an area, we'll grid it out, and then we can bring the ground team in. And then we use the vehicle to go and engage the camels. We try to drop them as in a shorter period of time in a smaller area. Sorry about that. So that they are close together. So when processing them with the equipment, which you'd see in the video that's coming out tomorrow, that we can actually Ethan can hook up the quarters and they'll end up on a rail, just like in an abattoir, that in a cool room or anything.
Yeah.
You will be able to just fling them on, and then the primal cuts will just get filleted out. And so that's a lot of driving and a lot of airtime. So the example was like it took us 3 hours to find 12 camels.
Wow.
But if we're calling it our daily thing, because I'll have it where I'm driving to do a job and I come across a group of camels, and I sort of just go, right, well, I don't want to get a flat tire because there's a lot of things here that'll do that.
Yeah.
So I'll just go out and do it on foot.
Right. Okay.
And
because that was the next thing. Obviously, your rifle and things like that, it looks like an interesting platform that you're using. But there's a few things that kind of got me completely confused with Australia. You're not allowed suppressors, and you're not allowed. Obviously, I know the UK we had a ban on semi-automatic centerfires, but you guys aren't allowed them either over there. And you'd have thought they'd have been the perfect tool.
Western Australia isn't allowed them.
Okay.
So our entire state, the only people allowed those are for state or Commonwealth purposes. So that's, state government are the only ones that are allowed to have semi-automatic. So you have to be an employee of the state, like the police force
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the Department of Biosecurity. And yeah, that's it. They're the only ones who are allowed
And that's just
semi-automatics.
Western Australia. So if you went to another state, things are different over there. Different laws, different regulations.
Yes, so the Northern Territory would be allowed semi-automatics, and Queensland you're allowed semi-automatics, and uh, New South Wales you're allowed. I think I don't think they're allowed semi-automatics. Victoria you're allowed semi-automatics and suppressors.
Okay.
And then Tasmania is allowed semi-automatics, and South Australia it's very difficult to get semi-automatics.
Right. So why the suppressor ban? Because obviously you're all going deaf shooting a full bore, I think 308, aren't you? So it's I know I've talked to Germans and things like that, and they're finally realizing after they have meetings and everybody's shouting, what did you say? That they've realized that suppressors might actually be a good way forward. Is there a particular reason they ban them for you guys?
Paranoid politicians.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no justifiable reason. It's they don't want people to be able to conceal where they're shooting from, which means that it's a threat to public safety. The rhetoric you'll hear a lot here is it's a threat to public safety. It's a
Well,
threat to public
I'd hardly,
safety.
yeah, I'd hardly say a suppressor on a full bore rifle really conceals where you're shooting from, because at the end of the day, it's not like James Bond where everything's pew pew and it's very quiet. You still get that crack, and it's not like, oh, he's over there, he's on the hill kind of thing.
We are dealing with people who are pushing and making legislation that have never been in a scenario where they've uh, been exposed to them.
I was going to
Um,
say, have you ever tried? I don't know. It might be something you have done. Have you ever tried inviting any of these politicians out to look at the situation and see what's going on?
oh yeah, no. There's been an open invitation. I've contacted them and said, please come out and have a look, because we had a minister for police who said that a semi-automatic 22 was more than suitable. Um, yeah,
Really? Wow. Okay.
but yeah, no, we they will not come out, and that's typically a problem we have, that the politicians really don't like to spend more than I don't know 6 hours out of Perth. Um, so,
Well, you're away from the air conditioner at that point, aren't you? And there's a lot of things out there in the wilderness that might be dangerous.
yeah, no, that's so it is a real issue, and that's why, and that's a big motivation for putting the video up online. And originally, why I started filming our kills was to verify it, because when I contacted a government department for assistance during a pretty bad period, said we don't believe the numbers, and I said, oh well, here's a video for you, and they actually said we cannot accept that video. We can't have that on any of our like official communications, because otherwise it would mean we have to acknowledge the scale of the problem and we would be forced to act.
Just yeah, it's absolutely crazy, isn't it? That's just the classic sort of government idea. If we accept it, then we have to do something. But if we just plain blindly ignore it, you might say that, but who are you? You're just some guy on YouTube. We'll ignore. You can't be real, so we'll just ignore it and carry on.
Yes, yeah.
Because I was going to
So
say your YouTube channel has really, looking at your view counts and stuff like that, it's popular. People like to watch what you're producing.
Yeah, well, we are just showing what it takes to survive out here. Because it's all the stuff that we do with technology, but also just our work with cattle, our innovations through the business, simple things that we have to do out here, fixing stuff ourselves. But yeah, then uh, it is our pest season and stuff when we have to deal with camels because they are a threat to our business sustainability.
I was going to say, so when we talk, we've talked about camels, obviously. So what's their main damage or issue that they cause to your cattle station, your work, your livelihood?
Water. Um,
Okay,
the biggest thing is water. They will damage the water infrastructure because by the time they get here, they're quite thirsty. They'll push through past cattle, then they will drink a phenomenal amount of water, which means that our cattle don't have water, and the cattle need water every day, where the camels don't, and the cattle can start to suffer uh, because of that, because yeah, they can't
right.
get it. So we've engineered a way to reduce the impact that the camels have by the way that we've got our yards, but occasionally camels still do get into the yards, and yeah, you've seen what happens when that situation occurs, and it is literally fish in a barrel.
Yeah. I was going to say I'm assuming your water supplies out there are like boreholes, and you're bringing it up from below ground type of thing.
Yes, yeah, we are. Sorry, that would have made some clarity for everyone.
No. It's fine because obviously, yeah. I'm not entirely sure whether you've got like natural springs, but I'm assuming most of it would be underground water. So you've got to actually do something mechanical to get that water to the surface.
Yeah, and we do have two natural springs, and we have protected those with fences to prevent the camels from getting in them. And yeah, that had a phenomenal impact on the feral horse population as well.
Okay. So as well as, yeah, you've obviously got other problems with other things out there as well as camels. I think kangaroos are another one, and then you've got obviously you said feral horses as well.
Yeah, and occasionally donkeys, but the the can- the kangaroo population is blown out of proportion because, as you identified, we are bringing the water up from underground, and so we've artificially increased the water supply, which means the kangaroos can survive. They continue to breed, and yeah, they will just continue to eat everything. They will destroy the environment. So yeah, we need to manage them.
I was going to say it's not like you can just go and put a fence around 1 million acres. So yeah, it is a big. By the sounds of it, you're always going to be in some ways fighting a losing battle at this unless you can actually get support in there to assist. So can you bring people in to shoot these things or not?
It becomes a very interesting situation with things like liability.
Right.
Um, that they anyone who gets onto the property ends up being our problem. So even if we don't know they're there and they hurt themselves, we can be held liable.
Okay.
Which
Now, is that terms of the lease or something like that, or just a law that your insurers or something like puts down on you?
it's the insurance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, which is really frustrating. But yeah, we can bring people in. The main thing is that we have specific people, friends, and associates that we will bring in to do it. One of the biggest things, though, is that it takes a specific type of person to be able to do the job efficiently. Quite
Yeah.
often, people just cannot handle, cannot fathom the numbers when they first encounter them, and just they don't know where to start. It takes a little while to get used to it, to work out. Um, but it also takes a long time to really learn the animal and the way that they work.
Yeah, so obviously, if you're culling, let's say we're going out to do a cull, is there a particular format that you go in to do that? Do you take the lead animal, or do they move as a herd, or do they all disperse as soon as you start shooting, or how do you do it? Do you have like 4 or 5 guns around the place taking shots?
Depends on how we're going to tackle it. If we're doing it in vehicles, if you're doing it in vehicles, you don't have to take as much time specific, like specifying which one you're going to go for, because you can just keep on moving
Yeah,
through. But if you're doing it on the ground, or if you want to do very quick, like we do when harvesting them for meat, you do take out a specific animal, and you generally have there's two animals that will sort of rule the roost, and you've got the bull, and he'll typically be at the back of the mob. He can actually be a kilometre away or two
yep,
kilometres away, and then you've got a lead cow,
okay,
and yeah, it comes down to reading the situation, and you can sort of look at the animal and work out which one of those is giving the cues to the others. And so then you
yeah,
pick whether it's going to be the bull who's in charge at the moment, or the cow, because there can be times where if you go, oh yeah, just whack the bull every time, well, he doesn't really matter. It's the lead cow who's really driving the mob, and
she'll take
she'll
them with
bolt.
her, and yeah, yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
if you,
yeah.
yeah, if you take her out first, the rest of them sort of sit there and go, what's going on? Well, why is Sarah not,
Yeah,
telling us
yeah.
where to
Why,
go?
why is she lying down on the floor? Come on, it's I suppose it's the same as when you're dealing with the reds in the hind season. Generally, we leave the lead hind throughout the season because she gives us a good feedback as to where they'll escape the hill and where they're going to go. And then it can be the case of once you know that, you go, right, when we come to the colt, shoot her first, because then pandemonium occurs and they all just go round in circles. And then you can work out and take a few more out without any problems. But if you don't and you shoot something at the back or something like that, she just takes the whole herd and they're gone. So yeah, I can see the similarities there. So can you not this is obviously another one for you. Can you not sort of make this a commercial enterprise and actually sell or become like an outfitter and sell days for people to come and shoot camels?
It's illegal in Western Australia to do that.
Right, okay. Another we don't want blood on our hands kind of situation.
It's no, it's just a funny way the rules are, and there were some groups who were doing like hunting safaris that they would line up a couple of stations, and you would pay to go along with them. They basically gave you the access to the place, and they said, oh yeah, you'll get X kills, etc., etc. Um, and then it sort of was kind of pointed out that that was actually illegal to do it, because you're selling a service that isn't technically permitted in these areas, and it's to do with the conditions of the lease, etc., etc. So it to do things on a pastoral lease, you have to have a permit. So if I wanted to do irrigation, I would have to get a permit for irrigation. But to get the permit, there's like 21 different entities that I have to go through to be allowed to do that. And uh, yeah, it's a very big roundabout. And then at the end of it, there's one group which can actually just put a pin in it all the way, and that comes down to our native title. And that generally is a matter of cash. So then, if we were to do tourism and normal station operations, so people want to come to a station and they want to experience being at the station, yes, you can get a permit for that, but you've also got to make sure that you are within the constraints of what that tourism permit allows you to do, and it doesn't allow you to do hunting or shooting activities, or it doesn't specifically outline that you can't do those, but you wouldn't be able to advertise that as the reason people to come, because otherwise you'd need a different permit which then means that you need to get ministerial approval, and then you need to get inspections and a whole load of
So
things.
it's just so much bureaucracy. It's just absolutely, it's just not worth even contemplating it. That's crazy.
Well, we can thank the Homeland for that.
Well, yes, I'm sorry about that. It's we love bureaucracy over here, you know. It's one of those things. We'll keep sending it your way. It's mind-boggling though. It really is. We talk about all of this and yeah, we have deer issues in this country. We've obviously got super herds of fallow in the south of England. We've got red deer problems up here. The red deer problems are only a problem because there's so many people want to plant trees and turn Scotland into a forest again, even though it probably hasn't been a forest for millions of years. But then you've got a real serious crisis out there of a population that's probably not just out of control, it's beyond control, really, that nobody seems to want to acknowledge. And yet it would supply potentially so much food that it's just another, yeah, it sort of, we'll just ignore that and we'll pretend there's a food crisis and a food shortage, but we do have all this free food that we could put on the table. It's difficult to get your head around, really.
Look, I don't know who's coming up with it, but whoever's worked out how to farm crickets, um, obviously going to be the people that really are pushing against this whole free range and sustainability of the red meat industry. And it's a little disappointing. We know how we could achieve it, uh, and we know how we could start doing the camel here for human consumption,
Yep.
but it would cost a significant amount of money, and we wouldn't have the market for it here in Australia because it's yeah, again, it's a not so taboo food, but
It's an
um
exotic meat, isn't it? Classified as that kind of thing.
yeah, but I still don't understand why people would rather eat crickets than than red meat.
But yeah, well, that's a whole nother. We could probably go on about that for a long time. This whole topic of I, I think it goes all the way full circle, and we close the loop again, which is that thing of the disconnect and the removing the connection to your food and the blood on your hands at the beginning. People just don't seem to want to have that connection to anything anymore. They're happy to eat a hamburger or a McDonald's or whatever they get, and they think, yeah, that's fine. I'm just eating that because it came from McDonald's. But if you told them that was actually a cow and it had legs, or it was a pig and it was trotting around here, that's the bit they just don't want to handle anymore. They just don't want to deal with.
So I've got two things I need to really jump into that with. The first is going to make you smile, and it's my sister-in-law, so my wife's sister. She eats meat. She goes fishing, like she lives on the coast, and she'll go out fishing, and she will catch fish. Bloody great time, all of this. Happy to eat a steak. She'll demolish it, all good. She said when it came up about coming to visit at the station, and she said that she will bring her own meat. She will not eat any meat that's from the station because she doesn't want to know where it's come from, and she doesn't want any part of the killing of it. It's the whole thing. And like her husband and her son were both like, "Oh, cool! Like we might be able to go shoot some camels." But yeah, she was just adamant, nothing from the station. She only wanted meat from the store because she didn't actually want to have any feeling or knowledge of where it came from, or the chance that it could have been that cow's, young one that we're eating. And
Yeah.
that to me was very perplexing. I always take the piss out of it.
Good effort.
But for someone who goes out and goes fishing, I
Yeah, yeah.
I I really enjoy fishing. It's unfortunately something I don't do much out here, uh, to go out. She enjoys the whole process of getting one on the line and bringing it in. But fish, no, fish aren't the same as beef or camel or anything.
But it doesn't have eyelashes and look at you with a nice face, does it?
Well, the part I can see there and the parallel, but the question is the fish are free range, and so that's a really nice aspect to it. You're getting something that's not in a very factory setting, but the big part that hunters around the world probably feel more than anyone else is, like we said, the blood on the meat. It's dirty, but it's real.
Yes.
Is that the proteins and the way that chemically the meat is different to the meat that you get in the store from an animal that's a monoculture, like they've only been fed single feed mix. We've got proprietary feed blends for cattle and livestock, whereas you get an animal from out here in the rangelands, and they've been grazing from such a wide variety in a very natural environment that their protein and their flavor and everything is actually chemically different.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
To it. So that's something that really should be capitalized on, and people don't really acknowledge it. We've got this whole fight going on in agriculture and the world versus agriculture, where they're saying, oh, you're too bad on emissions, cow farts are going to destroy the ozone, and the environment's going to get screwed over by it, so you need to compress the area that you're running cattle on and be more efficient. Let's put this feed additive to reduce the methane. And I am so thankful that we are not in America, where they feed corn en masse.
Yeah, no,
livestock.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, here.
Well, you're a farmer at the end of the day. You're the world. You're the enemy of the state number one for the planet. You are killing it. But then 3 million camels potentially are producing a lot more gas than the cows that you've got kicking around on the station.
Well, actually, the camels are not that bad in terms of methane emissions, so we can't actually bash them there. But they are so, again, back to their digestive system, they are so efficient that you can see what they eat, and you might go, oh, wow, they don't really yield that much in terms of meat for the physical size of the animal.
Yeah.
But they are so well designed to survive, and they eat a lot, but their scat, it's nothing. It is tiny. Like would I be able to compare the physical size? Like a couple of tombolas, like marbles.
Yeah. So they process everything down completely, and realistically, they've used everything. So what comes out is the bit that they physically can't do any more with at the end of the day.
And the texture, is just about a ground paste. When you look at the cow dung, you can still see some of the leaves and stuff that are that have made their way through the system. Whereas the camel, you can actually, it's been chemically broken down that far, but also it is so dry. Like if it's green, you will find the camel, and you can find them on foot. Like you've got maybe 20 minutes, if that, since they've dropped it. Right. If it's green, get keen. Like other than that, you can go up to it, and it's just gone black after a couple of hours, and it's just about dust.
Well, I suppose that shows just how much we've messed with, for example, cattle and all the rest of it over the years. They probably had a similar digestive system once upon a time, but modifications by man, which we've pretty much bioengineered the world since we were here. We've modified the landscape, we've changed how animals work and everything like that. We obviously haven't changed the camel in its natural way, but it just goes to show, doesn't it, that man has had a massive effect on the landscape we live in. I think.
Yeah, there's also actually a bacteria that lives in the camel's rumen that can pass to cattle and increase their efficiency at digestion.
Right. Wow.
And that's not actually been investigated thoroughly. That could be the next thing that we put into feedlots.
I was going to say that could be the missing link, that suddenly the cows all become what they classify as green and produce less noxious gases, and suddenly, oh, quick, patent that one before we. I'll give it a few weeks before I release this. You might want to get on with that one. It still brings back that whole debate about how the world moans that we've got food shortages, and yet you're in a part of the world where there is an abundance of product, let's just say, and nobody wants to acknowledge it's there. And it's not just the camels. You can eat kangaroo, you could eat horse. Well, the French do. So it's just another one of those things that I just can't believe, that on one hand the world is starving and on the other hand it's rotting. It's madness, absolute madness.
Yep, and it is sad to see it, especially having been to some of the countries around the world where they are starving and they want the food, and we literally have it outside our door, rotting away.
100%. And it kind of takes you to that topic of which everybody hates, the trophy hunting and Africa hunting. But at least, if you go over to Africa and somebody shoots a zebra or they shoot a giraffe, every bit of that carcass is gone, pretty much, apart from a small few percent that gets left. The whole carcass is in a village and the bushmeat is all divided up and everybody is feeding on it. And yet you've got exactly the same process that nobody wants to touch. It's just madness.
One of the guys I worked with in Africa actually did the culling of elephants.
Yep.
So after the war in 1980, he took some of his skills and was involved in the culling of the elephants, and he said, it was always used.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of positive to see it, whereas we get people abusing us on our on the channel, as you'd expect, and they're like, oh, why don't you give the food to the Aboriginals that live next door? And you're just like, well, they've got camels as well.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
They're not starving like that. Who are we going to give it to? Like, there's no one, and we can't get it to anyone. And if we're in one way, I was going to say that if we're caught giving it to anyone, we can get in trouble.
Really? So you can't even really just sort of put a post up on Facebook and say to somebody, got a camel fresh this morning, come and get it, because actually that's technically you're breaking the law.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to sell game meat in Australia without a specific license.
Oh man, it just, the more, I think all this is, it's just like it's Pandora's box, isn't it? You start to open it and all of a sudden it just starts unraveling, and there's more and more. How can we stop anybody doing this and making anything from it, or we just don't want to acknowledge it, and that's pretty much where they've got to.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know where you go from there to solve the problem without major change in society. But the only way to do that is to make a few more people hungry.
Yeah, absolutely, and make the West, actually probably make the Western world hungry. That's the only way, because the developing world would happily come and take your camels. The Chinese would probably tow them away for you by the lorry load, because free meat for them would be no issues, and things like that. But the Western world, the powers that be, the the controllers of the social media sites and all the rest of it are the ones that have the biggest power to change people's attitudes, and they're not interested.
Like the people that need to starve won't.
Yeah, 100%. And I think all we can do is keep producing the content. The biggest problem, I don't know whether you suffer with it at all, but so talking about social media, obviously anybody that shows any hunting content or anything like that, or a picture of a rifle or anything on like Instagram, we're now instantaneously shadow banned. I've been suffering, and I know a lot of other guys have been suffering. So you can't get your content out there. Do you have any issues like that?
I think the algorithms, like not the algorithm, the AI management of those servers and everything get very confused by me
Okay.
because I'm not just hunting. I'm not just hunting and shooting. I've got just regular, farm stuff, little bits and pieces, random stuff that's funny, all the way through, and it's just life because it's not really trying to. Well, actually, I'm not trying to push an agenda other than educating people, and
Yeah.
a big part for me is to let people see, that it is still, the world is still real. So that they get confused because they want people to stay on their platform and people enjoy our content, but they don't want to be seen as endorsing it. So the biggest one is when you look at YouTube, and if you look at your revenue from it, it is horrific, like how you're treated if you've got firearms
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
content. And in one regard, some of my stuff, it can't tell the difference between real and computer games. And so I think it gets confused and doesn't classify my stuff as real.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it'll be that you actually get shown how much revenue is generated from your content, and then it tells you how much you get of it. And I believe that with any of my shooting stuff, I get less than a third of what is made off it. So
Wow.
Google make a lot of money off firearms content because it's one of the biggest sectors in on YouTube, but they really try to not spread it to more of an audience where that's where I sort of sneak in there and go, here's some cattle work, here's some
Yeah.
technology, and
100%.
it appeals to other people, and then it's, oh, here we are, we're out, this is the shooting rig, and it's got Starlink on top.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah. No, that not.
makes
But whatever you can
yeah,
do, really. And it's kind of nice that you're probably not tarred with the same brush, because you are showing the real world of farming in pretty much an inhospitable part of the world as well. So yeah, no, absolutely spot on.
yeah, I try to maintain a whole process of not having no context killing. And I
Yes.
know that uh, it's not speaking down to other channels with shooting. They've all got context. That it's there. It's if not implied, but it would be really good if there was more time spent. And this is where the way that the social media works hurts the message that we all need to try and get across, is that there is a reason that we're doing this. We aren't just doing it for blood and gore and for kicks.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we tell the people why we're there, what the job is, what's going on, and how it's going to impact the environment or our lives. Because people complain sometimes when our stuff has got a lot of talking and context, but we're explaining the situation, how we're going to approach it, all of this, the briefing, the breakdown, what we're doing. people are like, oh, just shut up with the, you had 15 minutes of explaining, and then we wanted to just see killing. It's like, cool, you go fill your boots elsewhere. That's
Yeah. The killing is the clinical part. The actual educational part and the describing and the information that builds to it is the most important part, so that the context is never, it's not taken out of context. Because if you just had a whole load of camels being headshot or neck shot, it doesn't really say anything at the end of the day. But if you've explained the reasons why you're doing it, it's the same with the deer management over here. Why are we doing it? It actually gives the bigger picture, doesn't it?
it is, and that's what's important, because we need to inform the customer, the people, and that way they'll begin to understand our motives and what we're doing, and then they're going to start to understand our role in the environment and protection of the environment, and then that's how we try to get support when it
Yeah,
comes up
well,
to problems.
well, I think hopefully, and again, that's what these podcasts and things like that are for. It gets the word out there to a different audience, so that people can then look in and understand what's going on, and then hopefully a bit more traction. And if, as it's a small community, really, okay, we're thousands of miles apart, but we both are on the same page, talking about problems that are just, doesn't matter where you are in the world. There are problems with certain species of animals that have to be managed, because there is nothing that will do it for you.
Well, and we come back to that we are part of the oldest living culture in humanity,
Yeah,
the hunters. Like
yeah,
that's it. That's the hunters were in the environment out there, understanding it, and that's that's it. That's what we need to do to make sure that we carry it on, because that, I think, is a key part to identifying that we can live sustainably.
yes, yeah. I no, 100%. Well, it's, we are the apex predator at the end of the day, and it's the same as the wolf or things like that. You look at, and there was always management, but man managed even the wolves and the other apex predators that were out there, because we kind of came in and terraformed the landscape. Really, that was it. We were put in charge. So yeah, that people don't like the idea of the hunter, but the hunter is kind of critical to the whole survival of the planet in some ways.
Well, yeah, the wolf's a great example. Another one, and it's very, very Australian, the shark.
Yep.
We don't take enough sharks out of the water. That's as simple as that. We need to remove more sharks. That's
Yeah.
the balance has been thrown out. We've taken away some of their food. We've actually protected them, which has meant that they aren't getting taken out by anything else.
Yeah.
So
So now it becomes to that point where there are too many sharks, and their population. Well, I don't know how it works with that. Do you end up with them choosing different species to go after, or it just means that you've got major problems around the coastline?
they go after people.
Yeah, there you
they,
go.
yeah,
Yeah,
we go and dangle some bait out there for them that happens to have two legs. Um,
but
but yeah,
yeah,
that's it. We've got an increase in shark incidents, and why is it? And that's, yeah, we aren't actually fishing them. We're not taking them out.
yeah. And I think we could go to every country in the world, and there's a problem. So Europe now has, we've touched on the wolves. Wolves have been reintroduced. They're protected. They are now a problem. You've obviously talking about sharks. You've got camels. We could look at other parts of the world, and there's always a problem. That's because, well, it's possibly because Disney did a shed load of damage to the world for us, and everybody now believes that everything's fluffy and sharks are fish are friends and things like that, and the shark's not going to do you any harm. It just swims around in the water.
Oh well, look, red deer and rut's not going to hurt you, is it?
Exactly, yeah. And this is the thing, people, yeah, I think that's we once upon a time when we lived in the cave, we were very connected to nature because the elders would have come in and told you the story, and the story was passed down, and the next generation wanted to be doing that, or they knew their role. We've made it so easy as it takes us full circle in this story. We go into the supermarket, everything's there, you fill your trolley, you get to the end, you hand over some imaginary money at the end of the day, and you walk out the supermarket with no guilt, no shame, and that's it. And I think that's the problem. Society is its own problem in its own way.
I think a really good one about the shopping centres and colours and branding and everything everything that we're doing artificially there is that all of the natural warning signs that we have, your bright red, your yellow, they are becoming part of food advertising because they target that same fear response in you. But you're being trained to hang on a second. That's the fear reward, but it's the same item, and so then we're getting all these incidents where people are going out into nature, going, "Oh, I'm going to go out into nature and enjoy it and stuff," and then they go eat a death cap.
Yes,
But it's probably done society something good, but
the Darwin effect. If we could just have a bit more of it, we might lose a few more of the stupider people and the ones that are putting all these laws into play, and maybe people would wake up and stand up and go, hang on a minute, we can't just all be sheep.
Well, there's an argument that could be made that we're doing too good of a job of keeping people alive.
There is that as well. Anyway, before we disappear right down another rabbit hole and start having a massive debate about different things, I think what we'll do is I think we've covered quite a lot there, and hopefully some definitely some interesting questions that people might raise. If they are interested, I'll put a load of links in the short about coming to visit your Jack at the Back YouTube channel. I think you're on Instagram and the other socials, so they can come and have a look through your videos. And yeah, if there's anything else, drop Jack a message or drop me a message, and I'm sure we can answer the questions. But
yeah, if people really, really want to see us go down another rabbit hole, let us know, and
we'll do another one, definitely. Yeah, we could sit here and talk for hours about something different, I'm sure. And there's a lot more conversations to be had from people that think on the same page. I think you can. There's a lot of topics we could talk about.
Yeah, and it comes back to that part where we're part of a bigger culture that transcends, language, religion, race, all of this. And, there's so many other people in the world that do this, and it's part of their culture. But myself and, my family were 6 generations here in Australia, and we see it as a big part of our heritage in farming, but farming also has always gone with hunting, and you don't have to be born into it. You don't have to be born into hunting. The generation before you doesn't have to be full of hunters. There are hunters out there, and I was asked the other day if you still get excited when you're going to go shoot camels, and I said the only time that I really enjoy it is when I've got someone else there with me, and I get to teach them about the land, the environment, and what we're doing to protect it. And that's the environment and that's the culture you will find with hunters around the world.
100% agree with that. Yeah, really do. 100% agree with you on that. That's the best time is when you're helping or educating or giving somebody else sharing that knowledge and that skill so that they can take that on with them.
Yeah, it's how our tribe as humans has taught, and there's nothing better than that. And I've got so many friends that can turn around and say that it's because of that they haven't ended up in a hole early.
Yeah.
So
I 100% wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And I think a lot of the people listening, the older experienced hunters that listen, and especially we get a lot of novices and new people, new generation coming into it. They're looking for that mentor and guide. So I think, yeah, that's probably the best note to end on. That yeah, it is. I would 100% agree with you.
it's been good.
Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, we'll hopefully get you back on at some point, and we'll go down another rabbit hole and talk about some other crazy things.
Oh, we certainly will.
Superb. Thanks very much for your time. Speak to you soon.
Yes.
Well, thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly learned a lot of things. One, how vast Australia is. Two, as soon as you start pumping water up, camels, kangaroos, everything that you don't want near your cattle and water supply comes in to find it. It's quite phenomenal, really, but also how they keep track of all of this. Anyway, that does bring us to the end of season 1 of the Outdoor Gibbon podcast. So the next time you hear my voice, we will be starting season 2. Slightly new look to the way the podcast is going to come out. You'll also hear from our sponsors. So anyway, thanks very much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.